This week on Paul's Security Weekly, minus Paul and also minus Larry, I guess. But yeah, so there's nobody here except, well, there actually are some people here. In the first segment, Matthew McMahon, close enough for government work, is in the studio with us from Salve Regina University, and he's going to join us to talk about medical waste. No, I'm sorry, medical devices. I got it. But medical waste might be interesting too. Cybersecurity and Resiliency and Cybersecurity Training. So we can talk about all those fun things. In the segment 2, Justin Murphy joins us from Cisco to talk about DNS in the security architecture. And in the security news, well, there's a 0-day on Windows 10 if you hadn't heard about that. The battle over Huawei, you probably heard about that. And with the U.S. and Google and other user creds are exposed online. Unpatched hardware, yeah, it happens. And companies tripping themselves up. All this and more on Paul's, minus Paul's, Security Weekly.
This is Security Weekly. For security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. NetSparker, the developers of desktop and cloud-based web application security scanners that enable you to automatically identify vulnerabilities in your web applications and web services. NetSparker scanners employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities with their proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at netsparker.com or email at contact@netsparker.com. Is your IT team ready to face the next implementation or upgrade? Do you have a pool of talented team members who are trained and ready to support your organization's growth? The right IT skills development platform can get you past the IT skills gap. With training content that's so engaging, some even call it binge-worthy learning, your team will watch and learn more with IT Pro TV. Get a free team trial of IT Pro TV today. Visit securityweekly.com/IT Pro TV. Thinkst Canary makes high-fidelity honeypots that set up in minutes and requires no ongoing administration. Attackers moving silently on your network advertise their presence by tripping over them. There's a good reason Thinkst Canaries are deployed and loved by some of the best security teams in the world. They're inexpensive, they're simple, and they work. For more information, go to securityweekly.com/canary or direct message @Thinkstcanary on Twitter.
Hello, and welcome to Security Weekly. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you...
Take two!
Wah, wah.
We're live!
Here we go. Hello, and welcome to Security Weekly. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you to a man who has the largest left testicle in New England, Mr. Doug White.
Yeah, that's why I'm always leaning this way. Thank you, Chaw. Tonight, we got Lee Neely from Lawrence Livermore. Hi, Lee.
Hi, Doug and everybody. Greetings from Idaho. My wife gave me half a bottle of wine to make this last the show. I'll try and make it last.
That looks like maybe 3/4 of a bottle there, Lee. I don't know.
We'll measure later.
5/8. I don't know. Get back to that. Also, we got Jeff Mann from the sunny state of Baltimore. I know it's not a state.
No, it's not a state.
I know it's not a state. I get to say that. I didn't mean a state.
Live in?
It wasn't state capitalized. It was little s state. You know, like the state, like a state of mind, like the Baltimore state of mind.
Well, I'm here, and I'm fresh back from Nolans, and happy to be here. And I think you missed a golden opportunity to introduce this show as Doug's Security Weekly this week, just saying.
Well, I was trying to do that, but they told me there's a guy standing right over here with a rifle. So, yeah, it's just like I can hear him in my head going, don't say that, don't say that. And it's like, I almost said it, though. I was going to, even Jeff's Security Weekly, then I just sneak out the back door and we're done. Yeah, it's like, I take all the booze off the bar. I've also got Patrick is sitting next to me, right? Patrick Lee is right here.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah.
Always fun to join you guys here.
Thanks for coming in. It's always for Rapid 7 and all that good stuff. They have ads all the time on my on everything online now.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how those things are always popping up, probably just because you just set it in the house or something like, boy, I really wish I could get a pen test. Boop, Rapid 7 pops up right on your browser.
Hey, Alessa, what's,
Yeah.
I'm a real Rapid 7 today. It's like, but, that kind of stuff. We've also got Joff Dyer with the master of introductions coming to us live from the state of North Carolina. See, I do know some states. Hi,
You
Joff.
just don't know what city he lives in.
We're considered one of the flyover states, as the people on the east and west coast say. You know, it's just like, oh, North Carolina. Yeah, that's the one I fly over, right? It's like
I always seem to land there, but then I leave again.
Yeah, that's Charlotte.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's because you're an American Airlines subscriber. Anyway, so yes, good to be here, and good to completely choke and mess up the introduction, but here we are, another great Thursday night. Oh, and Black Hill's new T-shirt. Check this out.
Wow.
The red team shirt. It is phenomenal.
So you're giving those out tonight, right, Joff?
Where might we get one, Joff?
Yeah, how do we get one?
You get one if you go to an event where Black Hills has actually got a booth. And you can sign up for our T-shirt giveaway. And now you're going to ask me, when is the next event where Black Hills has a booth?
Hey,
I have no earthly idea.
if I was really on the ball, I'd have that shirt under this shirt and I'd pull it off, and it would be like really cool. But
and we
Do you
don't
know if they'll
It's
be
not-
at Circle City Con?
yeah, we're not going to do that. No, not
So
going to
if
do
you
that.
find Black Hills at a booth, go find us, and normally we give them away. We don't sell them. We usually give them away as swag, and we usually have to actually do a sign-up list because they're very popular.
How about if we just ask John Strand really nicely?
Then you could probably do that, and John would go, "Yeah, no."
No.
Send him some guitar strings, and he'll go for it. Yeah. And I'm Doug White, filling in for Paul, who's on assignment in Tijuana, and Larry.
Wait, Tijuana?
Yeah, and
What's he doing down there?
Something, I don't know, something about donkeys. I'm not sure what that was. And Larry said he had a strange rash, and it just
From the
wouldn't-
donkeys.
Yeah, probably from the donkeys.
So they're probably together somewhere
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. Anyway, bathtub, I don't know. It's like-
Inseparable.
that's what they do when they're not here.
with like one kidney between them.
Yeah, exactly. So, but hey, there's people everywhere that now have kidneys. So, Paul's kidneys, although I don't know if I'd want those.
Yeah, as long as you don't take their liver, because that just does not work anymore.
And it's kidney too, you know.
Yeah,
It's like,
Probably not a good idea to take the liver. I recommend against that.
I don't know.
It's
Grow a
choking.
new one in a lab, clean it up, whatever.
It's probably
And-
probably not going to be a certified pre-owned there.
Maybe not certified, but you
It's
get
definitely
you get a
pre-owned.
discount if you buy those from the right place. So, all right.
Wait, who's this guy in the other chair? Did you introduce him?
I did. It's Matt McMahon.
There we go.
Who is from Salve Regina. I did introduce him, and we didn't do a cutaway. We didn't do a sharp cut to him because we're going to interview him. So we'll talk to him in a minute.
We'll see if he knows what
there you
state
go.
Salve Regina is.
Yeah,
I'm
hold them
complete-
horses.
Completely preempting. Sorry.
No, you ruined the whole thing, Joff. I'm out. That's it. We're done. That's just,
All right.
Have a good night.
See you later, Doug.
God. I had
We'll
this whole
take-
thing planned out to the segment. Oh. No, okay. Anyway,
Thanks, Joff.
so you should register for our upcoming webcast with Salt Stack, Domain Tools, and Logarithm by going to securityweekly.com/webcasts. If you have missed any of our previously recorded webcasts, you can find our on-demand library at securityweekly.com/on-demand. All right. So, Matt McMahon. Is that I'm hitting all around it, or it just not
No, that
quite?
was good.
Okay, from Salve Regina University in the sunny state of Newport. I'll stick with that model.
There you go.
And product security expert for a large medical device manufacturer. We're going to talk about what a large medical device might be.
Yeah, Doug's gonna need that with his testicle.
Yeah, I know. You can't just X-ray that with a regular old machine. It's got to be like like maybe
It's
this.
gotta be a large medical device.
Yeah, a large medical, like at the airport or something. You just lean in and and you're good to go. Oh yeah, exactly. This is going so well already.
Paul's never having us back.
No, we're done. It's like
You two are fired.
Coming soon, Security Weekly hip waders for when it gets really deep.
all right, Matt. So thanks for joining us. It's good to have
Thanks
you
for
here.
having me.
You've never been here before. It's the first time, right?
Yeah,
It's
first
like
time.
Paul talked to you at the conference down there in Newport.
Yeah, the Ocean Cybersecurity Day.
Yeah, that's cool. So then he actually had you up here, so you must have done well.
I hope.
I was in Russia that week, so I don't know what happened. I was making all those deals. Somebody's got to pay those guys, but it's like somebody's going to do it.
Definitely.
Well, how did you get started in information security? That's always like something I like to ask people, because everybody has a different story in this field, and there's this old guys that were like, oh, I don't know. It was like,
It was an abacus somewhere.
yeah.
Yeah. So I've worked for I worked for a number of years in medical software. So I worked for a company, Meditech, and then I installed software for Meditech for a number of years, configured that, and then eventually moved on to another unnamed large medical device manufacturer, where I continued to do tech support there, so connecting medical software with a number of medical devices, troubleshooting that, and then for the last 3 years, I've been working for their cybersecurity group. I got into it actually at Salve. Before I taught at Salve, I actually took a couple classes at Salve. So towards the end of, I was getting a master's totally unrelated in international relations at the time, and they offered some cybersecurity classes, and I said, well, that seems interesting. I've been in the tech side for a while. So
was that at Salve too?
At Salve, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, grad classes. So I took a couple of those, thought it was really interesting, and ended up taking, I don't know, probably 10 or 12 more. And I took a cybersecurity and healthcare course the first semester that they offered it, and I was asked a little bit after if I would be interested in taking it over. So I now teach cybersecurity and resiliency in healthcare, and cybersecurity and healthcare policy, which is a course that I built. Is that
the focus at Salve Regina? So the focus on like healthcare cybersecurity stuff?
Yeah. So they have a really interesting focus. There's a lot of traditional cybersecurity master's programs out there that are, a little bit more computer science based. Salve's focus is, which I really like, is teaching folks that aren't as familiar or maybe new to. They're basically pairing cybersecurity classes and certificates with other masters. So the courses that I teach, I think they offer 8 or 9 different courses in cybersecurity and healthcare. It's actually part of the Masters of Cybersecurity Administration program. So we get a lot of clinical staff. We get hospital administrators that come in. So it's nice. I get to be their first cybersecurity class sometimes. So I try to judge my class on how much I can hook them and see if I can maybe pull 1 or 2 of them to, like a DEF CON 617 meetup or something afterwards. So I've kind of built my classes to take people that were new to cybersecurity that didn't really have any experience in it, try to get them really interested in it. And then, a lot of times those are the senior leaders of hospitals that are going to go back, and hopefully then they have it in the back of their mind that, hey, maybe I should actually listen to those security folks and implement some of their recommendations.
Are they going to do better than they used to do? When my daughter was born, all the monitors in the birthing suite were running Linux, and they were all logged in as root. And so I actually was able to start pulling the desktops in from the other birthing suite rooms, because there was a woman screaming next door. You could hear her going, "Oh my God!" And I was like, I wonder what's happening to her. And I just, we just switched the feed and got the other screen. And the anesthesiologist got real interested in that process.
So wait, I have a question here. So
go ahead.
You said this was when your daughter was being born.
Yeah.
So your wife is in labor, and you're busy hacking Linux machines.
Yeah. When this was actually happening was when they were actually doing a spinal tap on my wife's spinal block. And the anesthesiologist got interested. He was like, "Oh, that's Linux." And I was like, "Yeah, it is." And I was like, "I think it's like OpenSUSE or something." And we were looking at it and looking at the kernel. And my wife finally said, "Excuse me, I'm like sitting here with a needle in my back. Could somebody please pay attention?" And the anesthesiologist was like, "Oh, hell,
And Doug said, "I almost have root."
Yeah. Oh, I had root. No, I was there. We were in. And it was like we could do bad things. Do you think they're doing better than that now? Enough said.
We're getting better, but I think the average estimate is the healthcare industry is like 10 to 15 years behind in security. So, there's been a lot of great work recently. A lot of security researchers like Dr. Damoff working with UCSD to raise awareness. And I think a lot of that is kind of the target audience too. We're used to talking security with other security people, but it's nice to kind of get out of that space. Dr. Damoff's been going out and talking with actual doctors, nurses, clinical staff to kind of raise that awareness. Those are the folks that a lot of times are going to make those decisions is, do I get the device that clinically is great, or do we spend a little bit extra money and get a device that clinically is what we want but is also secure too? So
I had a question.
Oh, sure. Go right ahead.
So when Doug was mentioning, the Linux was the squirrel, the shiny moment that hooked him into that. With those hospital administrators and the folks in your class, what is it that gets them hooked and sort of makes cyber real for them? But they're going to not just lip service. You got them.
So I try to use a couple different formats in the classes. I heavily use a lot of videos from some of the medical device hacking videos from DEF CON, Black Hat, things like that.
He's got one of my daughter being born. So
yeah, it's very much
that whole scenario played out.
But yeah, just trying to use real life experience or connect with them to show them that it's not just a hypothetical thing that may or may not happen, but there's actual cases where they should be concerned about. So,
what do you think the two most important things for like if you could only teach them two things, what would it be? I mean, so you got to teach these admins like that's all you got.
Yep. So it's interesting in the healthcare industry. Healthcare is the only critical industry where actually more likely a breach is more likely to occur as a result of an insider as opposed to an outsider. So I think it was the 2018 was it the Verizon threat report where 57% of hospital data breaches are actually due to some insider component. So I think doing that training that it isn't involved your clinical staff, your hospital administrators, things like that, is really important to raise awareness so that those folks are trained and have at least some basic level of cybersecurity awareness, and I think it's important to have an interest in it too. I'm not going to get surely all of my students aren't going to become hackers and be tinkering with things and taking apart medical devices and things like that. But if I can get one or two a class by the end of it that's interested, want to take more classes, want to start working in that space, I think that's great.
So what's the difference now in like a large medical device, and why do you think that's singled out? Because I keep seeing, I think all this stuff's getting smaller. Yep. I saw that you could take these, you could take a pill now that's got like RFID in it or something, so it's actually broadcasting. I mean, are you delineating that for some like security reason, or is it just because that's just like your division?
Oh no, I just meant like a large company, like we make like big devices, small devices.
I misread that.
In a lot of cases, the smaller devices we get involved in with security a lot more because those are the devices, if it's a small point of care device, a researcher can generally buy it online for fairly cheap and then bring it home. It's a little bit harder to buy a used imaging device, put it on the back of a tractor trailer and bring it back to your house. So
But would it be cool?
It would be really cool.
So now when you said that most of the breaches that you're seeing at hospitals is insider, are you referring to like people losing their laptop?
It's a combination. I think from the Verizon study anyway, it could be misuse. Mm-hmm. It could be restricting access, so you're giving too much access. If a nurse is only treating 10 patients a day, they only need access to that limited subset of patients. But from an IT perspective, they may not have enough IT staff where they're just going to kind of give them access to too much. So they might just be viewing it might just be viewing another patient's data that they're familiar with, but they shouldn't be viewing. Or it could be misuse. A lot of times the clinical staff is dealing with all these different medical devices that they're not really fully trained on. So they might be utilizing it in a way that maybe it wasn't intended. I bring that up in a lot in our threat and risk assessments where, this is the intended operating use, but, if you give it to someone that's untrained, how might they actually use it? Does it have a USB port? Are they going to try to plug in and charge their phone? If it's an overnight staff, that's probably something that's going to happen. So these are all things that you kind of need to consider, like real world actual use cases of how you would actually use the device.
Well, the stuff I saw when I audited some HIPAA stuff a long time ago, but the stuff I was seeing, this was like doctor's offices. I wouldn't call it large, but it was like doctor's offices that had switched over to just tablets or they had some of them had PCs sitting in an exam room. The biggest thing I saw right away was they would get distracted. And so something else would happen and the doctor would leave the room. I was just observing and somebody would come in and go, code blue. And, everybody would go running, which is what they should have done. But they would leave like a PC logged in, just sitting there. And then I quickly found out that they all shared the same login, the same password, and it was all root. It was all administrator. Everything, everybody had access to everything. How do you figure out a way to do that, especially with professionals? Because you go tell doctors and surgeons anything, or professors anything. They go, no, I don't want to do that. It's going to slow me down. I got to run for the code blue. I don't have time to multi-factor in and multi-factor out and shut my terminal down and run into the next room. How do you deal with that?
I think a lot of it's training, showing situations as to why that's important, why it's a factor. It's probably because I'm a professor. I keep going back to training, but any ways that you can make it easier for them too. If it's obviously the medical space, it's life or death. So if you're in an ER, they have a fairly justifiable reason to say that this needs to be quick and it needs to be easy. We try to work with them to make sure that there is a way that it can be quick, easy, and potentially secure.
Well, yeah, I mean, we tried to work with just on a credential level to try to say, look, when the biggest, it's not the fact that you left it logged in. Yep. It's the fact that I can do anything I want with it while you're in there helping with the gunshot wound that came in the front door.
Exactly.
I mean, and that I think was where we kind of went, because I had the same, I was immediately just like, lock it down.
Yep.
And then one of the doctors said, like, what am I supposed to do here? They're saying this guy's bleeding out.
Yeah.
And being a computer person is like, so it's just a human. There's more of those. But I mean, but the idea was, he's got to stop and log off this console and do all these steps was just stupid. And so it was about how do you compartmentalize this thing? Yeah,
I mean, I think user access management at a hospital with a plethora of different devices and medical softwares is, it's a full-time job for several people. So, there's an inclination to maybe leave access a little bit too open so that, you can spend less time managing it. But, hopefully there's a better way to do that.
I looked at a small hospital once, and the same problem occurred, and it was a lot worse even than the doctor's office, because they had all these temps, which you never think about. But like most of their staff, they have like 2 nurses, and everybody else, they just call this like temp service that provides nurses, and nurses that want to pick up extra shift come in.
Exactly.
So they don't even know who's going to be there from day to day. So we were trying to figure out how do you compartmentalize these individuals.
So I mean, I've heard an estimate. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but around 10% of hospital staff with nurses maybe could be potentially be like an agency nurse of. A nurse called in, we need to get someone, where do we get them from? How do you manage that? You need someone that's constantly giving them access to everything. Yeah. And I've certainly seen hospitals that will remain unnamed that, they might have agency nurse 1, 2, and 3 as
just let me in on that later, but
profiles.
Put that on my list.
Question.
Yeah.
Yes.
So actually, two thoughts came to mind. One was, I remember in one of the doctor's office I used to be a part of, and I think their hospital too, they had proximity devices that they wore with them so that when they walked away from the computer, it locked and then they could come back. I was wondering how practical that really was at scale.
That's good.
And the other question is, will you be adding board cybersecurity worker as a threat in the medical space?
So for the first one, that's if they can incorporate it. That is that would be a good technology. What was the second one? The cybersecurity board.
Board cybersecurity worker in the delivery room is now a viable threat. Who conscripts the anesthesiologist into playing with the Linux prompt?
Or even board employees, Lee. I mean, I saw that a lot.
I'm being a little silly, but absolutely.
But no, he's here in medical board, but it's BORED. No, I've seen that a lot too with like law enforcement and fire and stuff like that. You got a lot of people whose job is like, moments of sheer terror separated by long periods of boredom.
Absolutely.
And they're sitting around looking at porn. They're sitting around going to hack sites or just whatever. And then that was a huge threat. Yeah. It wasn't a hospital, but it was another like service agency.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see that less like in an ER setting and more in like if it's like a overnight imaging or something like that, where the you're going to have a tech sitting there, but they really don't have a lot to do. So are they on a MRI device and they're looking at your Gmail or something like that, something that they shouldn't be utilizing. And, again, that kind of goes back to the use cases of people are going to do that. We need to engineer against making sure that, considering that they're potentially going to be doing that. Yeah, I think when I worked in tech support for a medical device manufacturer, a lot of calls that we got, I think, at least in the middle of the night happened to be, all right, someone was bored. Or at least you kind of read between the lines. I can kind of see how, whatever happened, where someone was bored trying something and,
We were catching those for bandwidth. I mean, when I actually did those audits, it was really just because they said we need this bandwidth when we need it.
Yeah.
And we don't know why it's so slow. And they wanted me to look at it, and I was looking at it just from a pure network engineer kind of thing, and I was like, what is all this?
Yep.
And then you start tracing and going, oh, that's Poker Stars, that's, Pornhub, that's, and it's like, yeah, that's what they're doing, and that's why all these calls can't come in. So what kind of training do you perform down there, like for those hospitals, and how often do you think you should do that?
I think I think doing shorter trainings, but more often to do the refresher is interesting. It doesn't take quite as much time. It's obviously a little bit harder to implement because then you have to take time out of their schedule to do it. But I think really just making it interesting. I mean, I'm a cybersecurity professional, and you see the InfoSec training come across, your email for your company, and you're like, oh, geez, this is going to be another really
Barry
boring
sends
training.
Linda an email that says, would you like to see me naked? Should you click on the,
Exactly. And I think in the healthcare space, with HIPAA, with willful neglect, we do a really good job training on HIPAA, but we don't necessarily train on like cybersecurity concepts. So I think, incorporating some of that interesting research and some of the presentations that we've seen from DEF CON Black Hat on what could potentially happen in a bad situation will that's my goal with my classes, to hopefully get people kind of thinking about it when they leave. So, when they walk away from that terminal that's, unlocked and they're logged in, they think, well, someone else could come over and, look at a patient result or, change something, and I'm logged in. So I want to make sure that I at least log out before I walk away.
Well, yeah, we were talking about that a couple of weeks ago on this show. It was about people changing x-rays.
Yep. Yeah.
And there were people like actually getting and intercepting x-rays and modifying them to make them look more like cancer or even worse was making them look not like cancer.
Yeah, that was a recent recent that came out. And then was it I think a year ago at Black Hat we worked with again Dr. Christian Demef, and he essentially wrote a protocol called the pestilence protocol that would take so basically have a medical device. It would read blood, whatever the test is, and then it could actually intercept the results as it was going HL7 unencrypted and change it, but not change it so that it would be noticeable that it was inaccurate, but change it to a type to mimic a medical diagnosis that you would then give a patient a specific drug treatment for and cause ill effects.
Wow.
So it was really scary.
You just think you're evil, then you hear that kind of stuff, and that's pretty far out there.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a lot like a lot of game hacks that started because used to games had the same exact problem. They were sending stuff unencrypted, and people were just grabbing the packets out of the stream, modding them, and dumping them back in the stream. And that's pretty easy to do when you got real standard stuff because it's just right there, and protocols probably published and whatever. Does that ever make you worry about like internal components? I mean, like, are these motherboards safe? I mean, you got an X-ray machine. Could somebody actually build backdoors into these stuff? I mean, do you guys test for that kind of stuff or start worrying about it?
I mean, we do definitely do that, on the initial test. But I think some of the biggest issues in the medical industry is just the length that hospitals keep devices for. I think the average age of a medical device is like 4.7 years. With big MRI devices and things like that, obviously they're going to be depreciated and sit in a hospital for a lot longer. So, if you have a device that might be that the manufacturer is no longer supporting it, it's not getting updates. It's just sitting there and
they're not necessarily easy to update either because they're very proprietary.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have a remote option to be able to.
We
update
saw that with military equipment too. So it was like they'd been spec'd and they had to get all these approvals to actually put that in the product. And so now that particular piece of hardware is pretty old.
Yeah, it's something that I've thought about. And I thought it would be interesting to kind of go towards. I know in the EU they use it's a little bit more common to have a leasing model for medical devices. I want to say like maybe 30% of medical devices are leased there. In the U.S., it's not very common. And I know, we lease cars, we lease phones. What would that pricing model look like to lease a medical device where if the manufacturer comes out with a new device, you would then get that new device. So we're updating it so we at least have the most current device. Obviously, that's going to look a lot different for a small device that you can just carry out or maybe mail back to the manufacturer, as opposed to what we'd call like a forklift update, where it'd be a giant device that you would have to bring back. But a leasing model potentially could lower that age a little bit. But it's something that we're really not seeing.
Do you see some of that stuff going up into the cloud? I mean, I know there's an actual physical piece of hardware that has to be used, but if the back ends of that stuff go up into the cloud, maybe those things become Dockerized, containerized, or something, and instead of this physical platform, it's just vastly reduced to a sensor, and now everything can kick out.
I mean, cloud's we're definitely moving, I think, more in the direction of the cloud in the medical space, but the interesting thing about the cloud is a lot of hospitals are very hesitant with regulations to have any of their data go offshore. So it's very specific to, it can reside in a cloud, but we have to make sure that all of our backups, nothing goes offshore. So and we see that a lot in contracts. So I think that's probably the biggest reason as to why we're not going to the cloud as much as we might in another industry.
Can we talk just for a minute about resilience?
Mm-hmm.
I know that's another one of your things, and I did a lot of stuff with medical community. I was doing a lot of stuff about disasters, and we were starting to talk about cyber disruption and cyber disasters and all these kind of things. And one of the places I saw a huge weakness in that, this was some years ago, but was in the medical ability to respond.
Yeah.
As things cease to function.
Yep.
So now it's because one of the doctors I interviewed was a radiologist, and he was talking about how 25 years ago when he started, he took an X-ray, he took the film, they took it down, they ran it through a machine, it developed it just like you would do photographs. But today, all that was done. They didn't have the chemicals to do the development anymore. So if they were down, because the scenario I gave him was, it was like, that cable gets cut.
Yep.
What do you do? And he was like, I'm not sure. Call IT. And I was like, they're all dead.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think, drilling that scenario is really the only way that you find out how your policy doesn't work. I had a really fun experience when I was installing medical software. I was out in, I think it was Indiana, at a small remote hospital, and it was go live. So it was the night that everything was supposed to turn over and go live, and the financial accounting was going to turn on and all that. And we were supposed to go live at midnight, and at like 11 o'clock at night, the whole hospital, or at least that wing of the hospital, goes dark, and someone yells, "Damned squirrels!" I'm like, what the hell just happened? And apparently there's these like little black squirrels in that area of Indiana that are known to kind of be mischievous. And this hospital in particular had an issue where these squirrels, I guess, get into their power transformers or something, and the squirrel committed hara-kiri and would knock power off. And that hospital was amazing at falling over to their backup power, going over to backup systems, because it happened all the time. And they weren't purposely doing that, but just the way that their environment worked, because they were constantly drilling, okay, this is going to happen, what do we do when it does happen? I think you have to drill those scenarios. Even at my company, we're doing tabletop exercises of, okay, who would you call, what would you do? I think like when WannaCry hit, a lot of folks didn't really know what to do. But then with that experience, it was like, okay, well, we thought everything would work well, and we know who to reach out to, but maybe we didn't. So now I think just drilling and doing those, even just a tabletop exercise to kind of understand, and do it in sequence. I know they've done them at Salve a few times where, here's your first bit of news, and you have this bit of information, and then maybe 20 minutes later we give you more information, and see how people react, and then see how the team works too, because a lot of times you might have a great policy on paper, but you might find out that your key players, maybe they're not there, maybe they don't interact really well. So it's good to kind of drill that and see
that was exactly what we found, and I think that's exactly right, because I had a guy there that was, he could have cut my leg off and sewed it on my forehead and I would have still been alive. But when we started saying, like, okay, the power has failed and you don't have any x-rays, what do you do? Go. Is it leeches and hacksaws, or what do we do next? And and they were really kind of like, I follow my procedure, and I get, and I was like, wow, this is going to be challenging. And and it was like, I'm not a trauma surgeon. I'm like, you are now, and the tabletop, and it was, I think it was just getting those ideas in their head. They're perfectly competent and capable of doing these things. They just had not thought about them very much.
And it's interesting how quickly it changes, because I've seen with hospitals, they'll be on paper documentation, literally, writing out their notes in paper. They'll switch to electronic medical record, and 6 months later, their EMR will go down, and they don't know how to fall back to the paper system. Like, you were just using it 6 months ago. You were so familiar with it, but you've gotten so used to, how do I give a medication? You learn how to give a medication in nursing school, but if the computer doesn't tell me right patient, right dose, right medication, you get very used to that process.
And I call that the old Lou problem, because the first time I ever did any resilience stuff with like public service things was with a water department.
Okay.
And it wasn't in Rhode Island, but it was with a water department. And I did this very same thing. I said, okay, the power's out, your software is locked up, and it won't come up. What do you do? Yeah. And the answer was, to every single question, we call old Lou down in the shop, and he gets his wrench out, and he goes down there and he turns those valves manually. And that actually made sense at the time, because I went down and talked to old Lou, and I said, what would you do? And he went, I go down with my wrench and I turn, and it worked. And, but the problem was, I did that again years later, and old Lou was dead.
Yeah, Lou retired.
Maybe we'll say he retired.
Right. Retired from life.
Yeah, retired from life. But I mean, the reality was old Lou wasn't there anymore. And the guy that was down in the shop that time, I went, so which wrench do you take to go down in the tunnel? And the guy was like, I don't go down in the tunnel.
What's a wrench?
Yeah. Exactly. No, I just push this button when the green light goes on. And it's like, the green light just doesn't come on anymore. And he's like, I don't know.
I try to call Lou.
Yeah. He's like, I got a number here. And it's like, oh, it's been disconnected. Oh, my God.
Is Lou there?
Leeches and hacksaws. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Matt, we always ask people 5 questions on Security Weekly.
Oh, boy.
I get to ask them. I was going to make up new ones, but I better not do that. No, I couldn't do any better. I tried. I thought up some stuff. So,
I'm so excited. It's 5 questions time.
Yay.
Woo!
You can tell this is a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's the most important part of the show.
Right.
Okay. Choose 3 words to describe yourself.
3 words to describe myself.
If one of them's leeches, I'll be happy.
Yeah, by the way, that was more than 3 words.
Dad, husband, and cybersecurity person.
Wow. How about that?
Those were hyphenated at the end there.
Oh, yeah. Cybersecurity. Yeah.
We'll give him hyphenated.
Okay. Yeah. We're good.
Yeah. Judges? Yeah, okay. It's okay. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, all right. No problem. We'll accept that, I guess. If you were a serial killer, what would your weapon of choice be?
I'd like to try to incorporate a medical device. So
maybe, a large one.
Yeah.
Just shock people to death.
Clear.
Like which one? That's a small medical device.
A small, yeah.
Oh, I was thinking more like, like an MRI or something.
MRI machine.
Like you make them swallow 50 ball bearings and turn the MRI on.
Yeah, just drop it like a piano.
Well, you could do that. Okay.
Hit him with the D-fib.
A little more direct. Hit me with the B-fib.
But remember, this is serial killer, so you got to do it over and over again.
Well, yeah. So you have to transport that around with you.
That would be problematic.
Police might notice the guy driving around town with an MRI on the back of the truck covered in goo.
I guess in that case, the D-fib would probably be.
Yeah, then you could get that in the backpack or something. Yep. Yeah, just look like a Uber Eats guy or something like that. Okay.
I'm just a lifeguard.
Yeah, it's just going downhill. If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the title be?
Oh man.
That's
good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Oh man, we'll take. Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh man.
Yeah, pretty much.
That probably fits. Yeah, if you're doing resilience, just like it's over.
I work in the medical field. Oh man.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Wow, that smells bad. Yeah. I noticed that a lot.
Does all that stuff go back in there?
Yeah. Whoa. Where'd this come from? Yeah. Okay. Well, it's in the popular game. My favorite question of Ask Grabby Grabby. Would you rather go first or second? Not European rules.
Gonna go first, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. See, it's the Europeans always goes. Yeah. No, I don't know. Depends on the rules. And finally, choose 2 celebrities, past, present, or future, or fictional, to be your parents.
That would be alive, dead, fictional, or otherwise.
Okay, yeah. It's just like, Joff nailed that one. You're right.
So Bill Murray, dad.
Ooh.
Oh, I like that.
Mom.
We're all good with same-sex couples if you want another one.
Yeah, it's okay, too.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Or even interspecies. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you can have a Klingon.
Bill Murray and an octopus. I mean, it works.
That'd be perfect.
We are Groot.
I would go with Bill
Yeah,
Murray
we
and
are
an octopus.
An octopus. There we go.
You can't lose with that. All right. Thanks, Matt. You're gonna stick around and join us. So on our next segment, Justin Murphy from Cisco will be joining us talking about DNS in the security architecture. Stick around.